You shouldn't have read my journal, she screamed after I found out she wrote about sleeping with my friend, so I moved out that night. Now she's writing me apology letters I'll never read. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. I used to think Lena's journaling habit was the healthiest thing about her. She called it emotional hygiene. Every night after dinner, she'd light one of those overpriced candles, pour tea, and fill page after page in her leather-bound notebook. I'd usually be working on my laptop across from her, the two of us sitting quietly together. She said it was her way of staying grounded. I believed her. She'd always been the kind of person who romanticized pain. When we first started dating, she told me she felt things too deeply for most people to understand her. I thought that made her sensitive. In reality, it just meant everything had to revolve around her feelings. Still, I loved her creativity. When she read me little excerpts, dreamy pieces about heartbreak, about finding herself, I told her she had real talent. Maybe that's what made it worse. I was her biggest supporter. I'd gone out of my way to encourage her. I bought her those expensive notebooks with the thick paper because she said cheap paper made her feel uninspired. I even built her a small writing desk by the window last year, sanding and staining the wood myself. She cried when she saw it. I thought they were happy tears. Lately, though, she'd been different. More guarded. If I came home early, she'd close her journal immediately, pressing the cover flat with her palm. If I walked into the room while she was writing, she'd look startled, like I'd caught her doing something wrong. When I asked what she was working on, she'd shrug and say, "Just processing stuff." One night, I joked that she probably had a secret second life in there. She didn't laugh. I tried not to make anything of it. I told myself people deserve privacy, especially artists. She'd had a rough year, family drama, work stress. Maybe she just needed to vent in peace. Still, the distance between us grew. She started staying up late after I went to bed, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning, tapping her pen, muttering lines to herself. Then came the small lies. "I'm meeting a writing group tonight," she'd say. "We're doing character studies." I offered to drive her once, and she said, too quickly, "No, it's fine. You wouldn't like it. It's kind of intense." I wanted to believe her. I really did. It was a Sunday morning when everything started unraveling. She'd gone out for a run, her journal left open on the desk by accident. I wasn't trying to snoop. I went to grab my phone charger and noticed a page half filled with writing, the ink still fresh. The first line caught my eye. "I can still smell Tyler's cologne on my skin." For a second, my brain refused to process it. Tyler, my friend since college. We all used to hang out. Game nights, weekend trips. He was the guy who helped me move into this apartment. I stared at the page, my pulse hammering in my ears. Maybe it was a story. Maybe she was writing fiction. But the next line shattered that hope. It felt wrong, but in the most honest way possible. I stood there frozen, hand hovering over the page, reading line after line that I wish I could unsee. Dates, places, details that lined up too perfectly with the nights she claimed to be at her writing group. That was the moment the air left the room. I didn't slam anything or shout. I just stood there, staring at her handwriting, realizing that every page I'd encouraged her to write was a record of her betrayal, signed in ink, wrapped in self-importance, disguised as art. The front door clicked open downstairs. Her footsteps echoed up the hall, and I knew, before she even saw me standing there, that everything was about to change. Lena froze when she saw me standing at her desk. The journal was still open, my hand resting on the edge of the page. For a few long seconds, neither of us spoke. Only the sound of her breathing, short, uneven, filled the room. Then she snapped. "What are you doing?" she shouted, crossing the room in 3 quick steps and grabbing the journal out of my hand. "You had no right to touch this." Her tone was shrill, panicked, but I didn't move. "You wrote about Tyler," I said quietly. Her face went pale, then red. "You shouldn't have read that. You shouldn't have written it. It's fiction," she said immediately, clutching the journal to her chest. "You're overreacting." I met her eyes. "You described his car. You described the weekend he came to help us paint. You described yourself wearing my sweatshirt." She blinked, caught off guard, then recovered fast. "You're twisting everything. You don't understand how writers work. I take inspiration from real life. You took inspiration from my best friend. She laughed, but it wasn't genuine. It cracked halfway through. You're being ridiculous. Do you honestly think I'd write something real like that and just leave it lying around? I don't know, Lena, I said. You've been hiding that notebook like it contained nuclear codes. Now I know why. She took a step forward, eyes sharp. You invaded my privacy. That's the real issue here. Everyone needs a safe space to express themselves, and you— Stop, I said, my voice low but firm. Don't turn this into something it isn't. Her eyes darted everywhere but mine. You always do this. Make everything so serious. It was just words. You read too much into things. Words, I said. You wrote about him kissing you behind our building. You wrote that you felt alive for the first time. How exactly am I supposed to read that? She looked away. You're exaggerating. I waited, giving her one last chance to be honest. She didn't take it. Instead, she said, this is exactly why I can't be open with you. You want control over everything. Even my thoughts. That was the moment something in me just went quiet. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. I'm not going to argue with you, I said finally. You can keep your journal. And your privacy. She frowned. What does that mean? It means I'm leaving. Her eyes widened. You're not serious. I am. Because of a few pages, she said, voice rising again. You're being dramatic. I didn't answer. I pulled my suitcase from under the bed and started packing. My hands were steady, my heartbeat calm. She kept talking, voice bouncing between pleading and furious. You're really going to throw away 3 years over something you think happened? God, you're pathetic. I zipped the suitcase. You wrote it, I said quietly. Not me. She threw the journal on the floor. It was fiction. You're supposed to trust me. I did, I said, turning to face her. That's why this hurts. Her mouth opened like she wanted to say something else, but nothing came out. I walked past her, suitcase in hand, and stopped at the door just long enough to look back once. You should have written a different ending, I said. Then I left. I didn't go far that night, just to Evan's place across town. He didn't ask questions when I showed up with a suitcase and the look of someone who'd just lost a limb. He just opened the door, handed me a beer, and said, guest room's clean. I didn't tell him the full story. I couldn't. How do you explain that you discovered betrayal written in cursive? That every word she used to romanticize pain was about making you the villain? I just said, things with Lena are over. He nodded like he understood, and we sat in silence watching a late baseball game that neither of us cared about. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every writing session she'd mentioned, every night she stayed out with her group. I remembered how she'd return home smelling faintly of someone else's cologne, something woody and sharp that wasn't mine. I'd once asked if she'd tried a new perfume. She laughed and said, guess I just smell good. Now it all made sense. I scrolled through my phone. Dozens of photos of us. Hikes, birthdays, lazy mornings. She was smiling in all of them. So was I? I deleted them one by one until my gallery was empty. By morning, the numbness had set in. I went to work like nothing happened. I answered emails, reviewed plans, nodded through meetings. When people asked how Lena was, I said, she's doing her thing. That night, she texted me. Lena, so you're really not coming home? Lena, you made a huge mistake walking out like that. Lena, you violated my privacy and then acted like a martyr. That's messed up. I didn't reply. An hour later, Lena, if you'd trusted me, you would have understood what I was trying to do. It wasn't about Tyler. It was about the emotions. You killed something beautiful. Killed something beautiful. That line stuck with me. The same woman who'd written about cheating on me now wanted to make it sound like I'd ruined her art. The next few days, she alternated between anger and pity. Lena, I just wish you weren't so fragile. Lena, I never meant to hurt you. Lena, this silence is childish. Lena, fine. Have it your way. I'm done reaching out. She wasn't done. 2 weeks later, a mutual friend mentioned seeing her and Tyler together at a bar. I didn't react. But that night, lying on Evan's couch, I realized I didn't even feel jealous, just tired. Whatever they were doing wasn't my business anymore. Every now and then, I'd think about how she must have framed it to him. Probably said I was controlling, that I didn't support her creative process. I didn't care. Let them have each other. Let him deal with her dramatics, the constant need for validation, the way she'd twist every argument into a poem about her pain. I was finally out of the story. A month passed. Her name stopped showing up on my phone. I started running again, eating better, sleeping through the night. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. One night, as I was finishing dinner, a new message appeared. Lena, I hope you're happy. Tyler ghosted me. I guess that's what I get for trusting people. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then put the phone face down and went back to eating. For once, her words didn't mean anything. It didn't take long for Lena's breakthrough novel to implode. 3 weeks after her last text, I got an email from an old college friend, someone who ran a small literary blog. The subject line said, "Dude, have you seen this?" It was a screenshot of Lena's latest post on social media. A long, emotional rant that started with, "When people fear your honesty, they'll call it betrayal." I didn't even have to read the rest to know what it was, a public meltdown disguised as authentic vulnerability. She'd apparently decided that airing our story, or at least her version of it, would reclaim her narrative. She described me as an insecure partner who couldn't handle being the muse, claimed that I demanded control over her creativity, and punished her for telling her truth. It was all written in that faux deep language she loved so much. The comments were flooded with sympathy at first, people calling her brave, real, and raw. Then someone pointed out that she'd just changed the names from her novel draft and copy-pasted sections. Word for word. Within a day, the tone of the comments shifted. People started piecing things together. Screenshots of her previous posts, timestamps, bits of dialogue that matched the fictional story she'd uploaded months ago. A few users even speculated that she'd used real people without their consent. The sympathy evaporated overnight. I didn't engage. I didn't say a single word publicly or privately, but I watched as her online image, that honest artist persona, crumbled in real time. Her agent dropped her. Her publisher quietly postponed her debut release indefinitely. And Tyler? He'd apparently ghosted her for real this time, just like she'd said. Word was, he'd gotten back together with his ex. Meanwhile, Lena tried to pivot the narrative again, first claiming it was all taken out of context, then insisting it was a social experiment on truth and storytelling. That only made things worse. A few days later, she texted me again. Lena, I know you've seen what's happening. I don't deserve this. Lena, you could at least say something. Tell people it's not how it looks. Lena, I know you still care, even if you won't admit it. I didn't answer. I didn't know her a lifeline after she dragged my name through the mud for art. 2 nights later, she called. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice trembled when she spoke. I didn't mean to lose you, you know. I just wanted to feel something real again. And you were always safe. Maybe that's what scared me. Then silence. For a moment, I almost felt something like pity. But it passed. Because that was the same line she'd fed me before, in different words, every time she needed forgiveness. Every time she rewrote her cruelty into poetry. This wasn't my story to fix anymore. A month later, her social media accounts went private. The book deal officially fell through. Word around our circle was that she'd moved back in with her parents for a while. And me? I'd rented a small apartment near the lake. I started writing again, not about her, not about heartbreak. Just small, ordinary things. I didn't post them anywhere. I didn't need to. For the first time in years, I wasn't a character in someone else's fiction. I was real again. It had been almost 4 months since I walked out. I hadn't heard from Lena in weeks. Her number was still in my phone, but the messages were long buried under work updates, family texts, and new plans. My life had become calm again, almost eerily so at first, like the quiet after a storm that wrecked your house but spared you. One Friday evening, I came home from work to find an envelope slipped under my apartment door. No return address, just my name, written in the same looping cursive I used to find endearing. I knew who it was before I even picked it up. Inside was a handwritten letter, 6 pages, front and back. I read it once slowly. She wrote about how she lost herself trying to be profound, about how every word became a weapon, and how she never realized how much of her heart was borrowed from mine. It was, in typical Lena fashion, half apology and half performance. She said she'd been working at a bookstore now, trying to start over quietly, that she finally understood what she'd done, that Tyler was just a distraction, and she never stopped loving me, not even when she was pretending otherwise. She ended with, I still believe stories can save us. Maybe this time, you'll write one where I'm not the villain. For a long time, I just sat there, holding the pages. Her words didn't sting anymore. They just felt empty, like echoes from someone I used to know. The next morning, I took the letter to the lake near my place. It was early, the kind of calm morning where the water looked like glass. I tore the pages into small pieces and watched them scatter in the wind. For the first time, I didn't feel angry or hurt. Just free. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. A few months later, a friend mentioned seeing her name pop up at a small local reading event. She'd written something new, supposedly about accountability and the cost of truth. I smiled, wished her well silently, and went on with my day. Because she'd been right about one thing. Stories can save us. Hers just couldn't save her. Mine did. And mine ended the moment I walked away. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.